Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. I'm your host, Rick the Barkeep, bringing you episode 198 here at the Tavern, presented by HeroTaku.com. So guys, I'm really excited for today's podcast because we're going to be talking about the newest Power Rangers series. The one that hasn't premiered yet in April, next month actually. And of course, guys, I'm really excited. If you've been following my Twitter, been following my Facebook, I'm really happy about this. I'm excited to go ahead and see it. And of course, that's going to be Power Rangers Dino Force Brave. And of course, I don't need to tell you guys that it is the much anticipated sequel to the very popular, perhaps the best Power Rangers series of all time, Power Rangers Dino Force. So guys, let's just go and talk about it. Here's what's happening. I can't do this with a straight face, guys. I really can't. But I'm not fooling anyone, am I? I know I'm a bad actor. Okay, guys, let me go ahead and start from the beginning here. Yes, today we are going to be talking about a new Power Ranger series. A Power Ranger series called Power Rangers Dino Force Brave, which is indeed a sequel to Power Rangers Dino Force. And I bet half of you have no idea what Dino Force or Dino Force Brave is. And that's okay because, you know, it's one of those things that doesn't really get talked about much, but really in the last week there's been this kind of media firestorm about it, about the promotion of this series. Not so much in America, because here's the twist you all have been waiting for, guys. This is a Korean Power Ranger series. Yes, this is a show that's going to be broadcast in South Korea. So there's a lot to unpack about this, guys, because I'm going to give you an idea of what's going on with the series. We're going to talk about the history of Power Rangers in Korea briefly, of course, and how the relationship with them in Japan works. And then I'm going to give you guys what I feel are kind of like mixed thoughts on what's happening here, simply because it's a very unique situation that's happening for Korea, but not necessarily a situation that's happening for Power Rangers here in America. And I'll get into that as we continue on. But let's talk about what's going on. What is this about Korean Power Rangers? Alright, so starting several years ago, what Korea has been doing is they have taken Super Sentai series, brought them over to Korea, and straight up dubbed them in Korean. They've done this to Goseiger, Gokaiger, Go Buster, Killger, and Tokyuger that I've known of, but I think there are a couple of others that they may have done before. I just don't remember them off the top of my head. Point is that this is something that's been happening in Korea for a number of years now. This is nothing new to them, but it is certainly new to, I think, a lot of people who follow Power Rangers, or maybe don't follow Power Rangers that closely. Because last 24 years, we've been importing Super Sentai footage to America and adapting it, and that's the key word, adapting, where we are taking the fight footage and the stock footage and mixing it in with American-made footage. But what Korea's been doing is like, no, we're just going to do a straight up dub. We're going to keep the Japanese actors, the Japanese locations, the Japanese plots, and everything. We're just going to put Korean voices over them so our audience has a clue on what's going on, which is very unique, guys. I mean, the last time something like this really happened was the Dynaman dub back in the 80s, where we brought over Dynaman, dubbed it into a parody series, and that's a conversation for another time. But, because we've always done that with Power Rangers with the adaptation. We've done that with other tokusatsu, like Kamen Rider, like Metal Hero. We've just been taking the series and making our own with new footage, but they straight up just went ahead and dubbed it, which is something that we've never done with Power Rangers, with the exception of course, Lost in Fan Translation. But again, that's a unique situation, and I've railed against that a number of times. But here's the thing, guys. Not only are they actually showing the show in Japan, but they're selling the toys over there too. Believe it or not, I do have a number of Power Ranger toys, or excuse me, Super Sentai toys that I have gotten from my sister in Korea, because I wasn't able. There was a time where I really wasn't able to start collecting a lot of them, and that was around the Go Sager to Go Buster phase. So about 2-3 year period, I couldn't get them, and once you don't get them within a year or two, the prices are astronomical on eBay, Amazon, so forth. But they were remaking these toys in Korea to where the lion the from Go Buster that I have is Korean, and the only difference between in the Japanese version is that it speaks Korean instead of Japanese. And the toys are going to be an integral part of this discussion I'm going to have with you guys. And again, we'll talk about that here in a second as well when I talk about my feelings. But yeah, this is something that they've been doing for a while. Now, oh, and just here's the thing: they have named. Just interesting thing about the names they had. Go Sager became Power Rangers Miracle Force. And I think Tokuger is going to be like Power Rangers, Rail Heroes or some Rail Force. They like using the word Force in there. And when they did bring Killjoy over, they did call it Power Rangers Dino Force, which is kind of odd as well. And if you can track it down on YouTube, look up the Gokaiger ending theme where they sing all the past Sentai teams, because they do have a Korean name for each of those different teams. It's really amazing. What's also amazing is they did bring it out under the Power Ranger moniker as opposed to Super Sentai. And I'm not quite sure why that is exactly. As far as I know, Saban is not involved in this process whatsoever. It is just a broadcasting company or a couple of production companies in Korea who are purchasing the footage so they can go ahead and dub it. I imagine that the reason it's called Power Rangers is because Power Rangers has an international appeal, but I do find that odd, and this is also a conversation for another time, of how Power Rangers has surpassed Super Sentai in international recognition and popularity, especially in Korea when, guys, there are hop, skip, and jumping away literally from each other in that part of the world. So it is still kind of odd to me that the South Korean audience has a show called Power Rangers, but it's not called Super Sentai. It's kind of a weird thing. Okay, so enough of the history. Let's actually get on track on what's happening here. So, turns out that Dino Force, which again is the Killjoy adaptation, was extremely popular. The show was great. A lot of people loved it. And of course, the show is Killjoy. This is not Dino Charge. This is not adapted plots. They're not changing the plots, guys. The footage is the same. They're just putting the Korean voices over the Japanese footage. So basically, Killjoy was a popular hit in South Korea. Not Power Rangers, but Killjoy, Super Sentai. And the toy lines, they sold tons of the toys. It's like the number one selling toy that they had for like that year or something. I don't know exactly what the statistics are, but that's what I'm hearing is the toy line was extremely popular. So basically, the Korean production companies at this point say, hey, we got a hit on our hands, and while they are adapting Tokuger into a Korean series, they have decided to make a brand new series for Dino Force Brave, a direct sequel to Dino Force. But here's the catch. They're not using footage from Killjoy or any other Sentai. They're making their own footage with Korean actors. So, it is like Power Rangers in that idea that they are adapting, but here's the wrinkle into it, guys. Well, first of all, they do have one of the directors from Killjoy, a name you might recall here, Koichi Sakamoto, who has directed many episodes of Power Rangers from Lost Galaxy on up. He is the director of Power Rangers Wild Force, where he did do Forever Red. But he also did Gokaiger, and he did, probably at least half the episodes of Killjoy. So this is a guy who is intimately familiar not only with Super Sentai, but with Power Rangers, and particularly has done some good episodes, and has worked with the source material in Killjoy. So they got one of the directors. In addition to that, they are filming, again, with Korean actors, but they are filming new action footage in Korea, and they're using Korean locations as background. They have new Zord footage. They have new Zords, guys. They have new costumes. They've actually modified the original costumes to look different. If you can track down the images and the footage, the costumes have new streaks of white and different colors on there. The Zords are all repainted white with different color schemes. They have new weapon attachments and slightly different molds and everything, and they're all releasing them under a new line. So basically, what is happening is Korea is producing its own new Power Ranger series, using elements of Super Sentai, using help from Japan, because Toei, again, as far as I can tell here, they are helping them with this. And here's here's the even crazier thing, guys. They are going to redub this in Japan under a new Kyoger title. So again, let's chart this out. They make Super Sentai in Japan, bring it over to Korea, call it Power Rangers with a Korean dub. It's so popular that they decide to go ahead and make their own series using help from Japan, and then rebroadcasting that show in Japanese with Korean actors in Japan. I know it's a lot to go ahead and process. I know I'm acting a little crazy here, but it's just so weird what's happening here, guys, because it's like, honestly, and I hate to say this, but the way they're doing it is Power Rangers done right. Um, and we'll talk about that here in a second, but you know, my wife, who you all will recall is Korean, she didn't play Pokemon when she was younger. Red and blue or green or yellow, all that. None of that ever came out in Korea because, for those of you who don't follow history of Asia and all that, there's about 500 years of animosity between the Koreans and the Japanese, typically because the Japanese keep wanting to invade and conquer them. And it's not always a pretty situation over there. And again, look at World War II and the stuff that happened there. And of course, part of the reason we have a North and South Korea, and again, I'm going to stress part of the reason, is because Korea was occupied by the Japanese at the turn of the century and during the Second World War, and then, well, all that stuff happened. But the point is, it's been a rocky relationship, and even when my wife was growing up, they didn't get imports from Japan. There was actually an embargo between between Japan and South Korea. She never got Pokemon, she never got Nintendo or anything Japanese over there because they weren't allowed to. There were, of course, some bootleg stuff that got over there, but that's going to happen with any type of embargo like that. So the Korean people have not been exposed to Japanese cinema, have not been exposed to Japanese culture, not in the same way that we in America were. Because, guys, Godzilla came out in the 50s, but from that point forward, we got Godzilla movies and shows, we got samurai movies, we got poorly dubbed parody series, and then eventually we got adaptations of live action stuff into Power Rangers, we got anime, all that stuff came over. None of that stuff came over in Korea. And not too long ago, I can't give you the exact date, but at least in the last decade or so, the embargo has been lifted, and now there is Korean stuff that's going to Japan, Japanese stuff going to Korea, and all that stuff. And one of the things that is coming over is Super Sentai Power Rangers, which I just find to be so unusual that of all the things to bring over, that's one of them. I don't know what the market is for it over there. I don't know what type of shows Korea really has other than Pororo the Little Penguin. That's in Chiro, but those are things my little daughter watches. It's just kind of an unusual thing that, again, all these years of animosity, and one of the things that it seems that both cultures are really interested in is this type of tokusatsu stuff, is Power Rangers, is Super Sentai. It's just one of those kind of weird things right here. But let's go ahead and talk about what they're doing with the series and like the production of it, because now my wife was able to watch a news video that they had done on this, and she was able to give me a gist of the the translation, basically. And essentially what they're doing is that Japan realizes that Korea is a new market for them to, well, essentially make money, basically, and bringing Sentai over there is one of the ways that they're doing it. And they do find that, or they did find that the toys and the series did so well that they want to continue that. Then instead of dubbing, they're going to try something new, which is why they're doing this cross-cultural thing with Killjoy, with Dino Force. Because, like I said, guys, they're filming new footage, and it's in Korea. Because one of the things they emphasize in what my wife was listening to was that it's, with Korean actors, with Korean locations. They actually have Zord footage taking place in downtown Seoul, not Tokyo, Seoul, guys. And then they have new action sequences that look like they came right out of Sentai. The only way you can tell that they're different is because of the new costumes, because the costumes are so different. The way it's shot, it looks almost identical. If you put Killjoy and Dino Force Brave side by side, and you couldn't tell the difference between Koreans and Japanese, you would think you couldn't tell which was the Japanese and which was the Korean. It's almost that identical, is what we're looking at. And I just find that to be amazing. But it does raise some questions on a number of levels here, because what you guys have been looking at your screen for the past 15 minutes or so is a picture of the cast. Now, just kind of notice something here is that they, in a lot of respects, do look like their Japanese counterparts, and that they do have a setting that looks like the Japanese series. And this is being described as a sequel to Dino Force, a sequel to Killjoy, and I'm really confused on how that's going to go ahead and take place, because you're not going to tell me that Daigo at the end of the series turned Korean, and now we're going to follow his next series of adventures. As far as I can tell, and I could be wrong in this, but as far as I can tell, they aired every episode of Killjoy. The series had its run, and it was over, meaning that they've defeated the boss army at the end. Amy and Daigo, they got together, boyfriend, girlfriend, and then we move on to the crossovers, the V Cinema, all that. So my question is, are these characters new Killjoys, or is this a continuation of this is King, this is Amy, this is all the Ian, this is all these same characters but now as Korean? Or is this a new storyline of sorts? They got new Zords, they're in a new city, new country at that. So, is this a reboot, or what is this? Nothing I've been able to find is giving me any information about the story. I can't confirm if, this is supposed to be King or not, or if this is somebody who has the powers after King. I don't know exactly. Hopefully when April 1st comes around, we'll have a definitive answer on that. But what I kind of find odd about it is that they would make it a sequel series instead of making their own new series. Because, guys, they're going to the trouble of making new suits, new Zords, new everything. So why are they using the same elements from Killjoy? I mean, they're using Tauren. They have the costume for Tauren that they're using here. Isn't that something? That's amazing. So I really want to know where they're going with the story in this. Again, is it a reboot? Is it continuation of some kind? Because it's entirely possible the powers went to Korea, and this is, again, an official sequel, just new characters. But then why are the characters all so similar to their Japanese counterparts in a way? I mean, heck, even the way that our new Pink Ranger in Korea is dressed is very reminiscent of Amy's design. And of course, our Gold Ranger looks like he has a samurai sword, and again, costume a little bit similar to our Gold Ranger over there. I just don't know. It's very curious on what they're doing here. And I hope the series does well, because this is what I'm kind of hoping. Honestly, guys, when I said this is Power Rangers done right, I mean, this is kind of what Power Rangers should be doing now. I mean, guys, think about it for a second. When the show was being filmed in Los Angeles, we still had Japanese landscapes and Tokyo landscapes. We were still using footage that they had created specifically for their show. Even when we got Zoo 2 footage and they gave us more, it's still filmed in Japan. It's still using Japanese actors in the backgrounds and everything. Everything was still Japanese. What Korea is doing here is they're taking those elements, but they're filming their own stuff. Obviously, they're using the elements, but look at the Zords. They completely redesigned the Zords. They're white with new parts to them, obviously to sell toys, but to show that it's a new series. Why is this something that Korea is doing, but Power Rangers is not doing? Why is it that we are basically saying to ourselves we have to skip this footage because it's not usable, or we don't like this footage, or we want to use this footage, when we could be making our own stuff like them? I mean, seriously, why are we on Power Rangers Ninja Steel instead of, why are we still using American footage, again, filmed in New Zealand, and then using Japanese footage when we can just go to America and film our own stuff with the Los Angeles backdrop and all that? Because it seems to me that this is something we should have done a long time ago with Power Rangers, and this shouldn't be something that we're getting for a Korean show. Now, I know you guys can argue that, you got Korea and Japan, they're a little bit closer, but I don't think distance has anything to do with what's going on here. We're in such an age where, because of the internet, because of how fast things are going, this is something we could be doing on Power Rangers. So how is it that Korea was able to do it first? I can only imagine that if it is successful over in Korea, that Power Rangers will start doing the same thing and no longer relying on Japanese footage, but just the Japanese elements. And what I mean by that, guys, is let's just say Zyuohger, for example here, that instead of trying to adapt footage of Zyuohger into a new Power Ranger series, they just get the costumes and the Zords and they start making their own stuff. We start filming it on locations in the United States or New Zealand. We start doing it, all the fight sequences, without any Sentai footage. Because, guys, that's another thing, too. That's probably something I should have emphasized earlier, and I guess I didn't make that clear enough. They're not using any Killjoy footage. They're not using any Sentai footage in this at all. Everything for this series, again, as far as I can go ahead and tell, is brand new, exclusively made for this show. Zero Sentai footage. So those action sequences, the Zord sequences, specifically made for Korea. Not for anybody else, not repurposed footage, brand new footage. Everything's going to be brand new. So you're going to be able to watch every episode, and it's going to be something new that you have not seen on our Dino Charge or Killjoy. And that's amazing, guys. And that's what we should be doing in Power Rangers. And further, and again, let's go off on the tangent on the toys real quick. Again, the only difference between the toys in Korea and Japan is that if they speak or say something, it's in Korean on the toys. Otherwise, they're identical to each other. There is no difference to them. So why is it that Bandai is able to make these toys identical for Power Rangers Dino Force, but we have to get the crappy versions for Power Rangers Dino Charge? And again, I want a reasonable explanation for that, but I doubt anybody's going to give it to me because, well, as we know, nobody seems to care about it but me. And I would imagine that if they're able to sell them and produce them in Korea like this, they're just, again, I mean, Bragigas is no longer silver. He's purple and white, guys. That's the only difference with him over there. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. So why is it they can get a repainted Bragigas in Korea, in addition to the original Bragigas, but in Japan we have to get the Titanosaur in some crappy little mock-up, that's not even the real thing. That's like, a quarter size smaller and is made of inferior plastic. Again, it seems to me that Korea is getting the Power Rangers series that we've always should have gotten, and they're getting the toys that we should have always had. But, who knows? I don't have anything else to really say about this, guys, other than it's just really interesting that this kind of stuff is happening. I wish the series well. I hope it does well, and I hope it becomes a model for, one, new Sentai, new Power Ranger shows to come out in Korea for them to do, maybe do a follow-up to Miracle Force, or maybe this starts a new series where every year it doesn't change. It is Dino Force Brave. That, season 2, season 3, same characters, new stories, situations, and oh my goodness, character development over many years, guys. I mean, can you imagine that? And I hope it serves an example to where Bandai, and Toei and Saban and all the companies involved are realizing, yeah, we can do this with Power Rangers and as well. Instead of relying on Japanese footage, we can start making some new stuff that makes sense. But that's going to be probably another topic for another time. I'm just hoping the series does well. I'm excited about it, and I'm excited as well because guys, I might get some of these toys since my sister lives over there, and or my sister-in-law, excuse me. So she might be able to get me some, but they're just repaints. I don't know if they'll be worth my time, but it sounds very interesting. It sounds really cool, and I hope. And actually, this is another thing too. Is I do hope that people like TV Nihon, Overtime, whoever, do get their hands on the footage and they do some translations, because I would love to see what direction this series goes that's different from Super Sentai, because they pretty much have total creative freedom at this point. They're not bound by footage, they're not bound by storylines, they're not limited in any way other than budget and creativity. So let's see what they can do. Let's see what happens, and let's see if, again, that could possibly translate into Power Rangers one day. All right, well, that's all I got. I apologize for being a little scatterbrained on that, going all over the place. But again, there was just kind of a lot to digest with that. Otherwise, guys, tell me what you think. Are you excited for this? Do you think this is going to have any bearing on the future of Power Rangers? And where could this go in Korea? How could it affect Super Sentai? You guys let me know. Leave your comment below. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening. And the tavern is now closed.